The moment my sister realized I knew everything about the stolen eggs, the fake pregnancy, the deliberate destruction of my career, her perfect mask crumbled before everyone at her lavish baby shower. The blood drained from her face as the DNA test results illuminated the projection screen, revealing 3 years of calculated deception to Boston's elite families who had gathered to celebrate her non-existent pregnancy. If you love seeing master manipulators finally face the devastating consequences they deserve, smash that subscribe button right now and join Nexus of Revenge for daily stories of calculated justice that will make your family dramas pale in comparison. Now let me take you back to where it all began on a Thanksgiving evening when I found my sister crying in our childhood bathroom, never suspecting that her tears were just the first act in an elaborate performance designed to use me, then discard me. I've always been the quiet one in our family, the smart Hargrove sister, who preferred labs and research papers to the social circles my older sister Adrian effortlessly conquered. Growing up in our Boston suburb, my parents made it clear which daughter path they preferred. My mother, a former beauty queen turned successful real estate agent, barely concealed her disappointment that I chose test tubes over tiaras. My father, at least, seemed to appreciate my scientific mind, himself a cardiologist who occasionally invited me along on hospital rounds when I was a teenager. That Thanksgiving was no different than the dozens before it. I arrived at my parents' colonial-style home, clutching a bottle of wine and a folder of recent research papers my father had requested. Adrienne's Range Rover already occupied the prime spot in the driveway, a gift from her husband Thomas when they married 3 years earlier. "Ellie, you're finally here," my mother called out, air-kissing my cheeks while her eyes darted behind me. "You came alone again?" I forced a smile. "Just me, Mum. The lab doesn't close for holidays." "Always working," she sighed, guiding me towards the living room where Adrienne held court, perched elegantly on the sofa beside Thomas. Her cashmere sweater probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Little sister." Adrienne's perfect smile appeared. "Thomas was just telling everyone about the new hospital wing the Caldwell Foundation is funding." Thomas nodded warmly. He was always kind to me, if somewhat condescending. "Ellie, we'd love your insights on the genetic testing facilities we're including. The Caldwell name should be associated with cutting-edge medical advances." Dinner followed the usual script, Adrian dominating conversation while our mother hung on her every word. Thomas charmed everyone with stories about the Caldwell family legacy, while my father occasionally caught my eye with a subtle smile of understanding. I'd become accustomed to my role as supporting character in the Adrienne show. The pattern recognition that made me successful in my research made me notice subtle shifts, though. The way Adrienne tensed when my mother asked, "When will you two bless us with a grandchild?" The way Thomas's hand tightened around his wineglass, the forced brightness in Adrienne's laugh as she deflected, "All in good time, Mum." I've always noticed things others miss. It's what drove me to genetics research after losing my fiancé Ryan to an undiagnosed heart condition 6 years ago. One simple genetic test could have saved him, and that knowledge fueled my current work developing genetic markers for early disease prediction. My latest research on Alzheimer's prediction was showing promising results, something I tried explaining to my mother over dessert, only to have her redirect conversation to Adrienne's charity gala. Later that evening, I headed upstairs to use the bathroom and heard muffled crying behind the door. I knocked softly. "Hello?" "Just a minute," came Adriana's voice, thick with tears. When she opened the door, her perfect makeup was smudged, eyes red-rimmed. For a moment, she looked like the sister I remembered from childhood, the one who taught me to ride a bike and defended me from neighborhood bullies before popularity and competition drove us apart. "Are you okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned. She pulled me inside and locked the door. "No, I'm not." Her voice cracked. "We failed another round of IVF. That's the 4th one." She slid down against the bathtub, hugging her knees. "Thomas's family. They're obsessed with the Caldwell heir. His grandfather keeps asking when we'll continue the line, like I'm just a breeding machine. I sat beside her on the cool tile floor, our shoulders touching like when we were girls sharing secrets. "I'm so sorry, Adrienne. The doctors say there might be an egg quality issue," she whispered. "After everything I've done to have the perfect life, the perfect marriage, I can't even do this one thing right." For nearly an hour we talked in that bathroom. Really talked, like we hadn't in years. She asked about my research, genuinely interested when I explained my work on identifying genetic markers for disease predisposition. We reminisced about childhood dreams and shared fears about disappointing our parents. As we finally emerged, Adrienne squeezed my hand. "You've always been the smart one, Ellie. I wish I had your brains sometimes." That weekend continued with moments that only later would I recognise as foreshadowing. Thomas asking specifically about genetic privacy in my research. Adrian making cryptic phone calls in hushed tones. My mother emphasising repeatedly that family must always come first, no matter what. Before leaving Sunday evening, I hugged Adrian tightly. "Call me any time. I mean it." "Thanks, sis," she whispered. "I don't deserve you." How true those words would prove to be. 3 weeks later, my phone rang as I was reviewing lab results. Adrienne was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "The specialist recommended an egg donor," she managed between gasps. "They said my eggs aren't viable for IVF. Ellie, I'll never have my own biological child." My heart broke for her. I knew how desperately she wanted this. "I need to ask you something huge," she continued before I could respond. "Would you consider being my egg donor?" The request stunned me into silence. Donating eggs was a significant medical procedure with risks and side effects. "Before you answer," Adrian rushed on, "remember how the Caldwells helped Dad get hospital privileges at Boston Memorial, and how Thomas's connections doubled Mum's real estate business. Family helps family, Ellie. That's what we do." The manipulation was subtle but effective. After promising to think about it, I scheduled a consultation at her fertility clinic, Boston Reproductive Partners, an exclusive facility catering to the city's elite. Dr. Melissa Bennett greeted me with unsettling familiarity. "Eleanor Hargrove, I've heard so much about you." She flipped through a file. "I see you've never had children, but your medical history is excellent." "Excuse me," I interrupted, "but how do you have my medical history already?" Her smile faltered. "Oh, your sister provided your basic information to expedite the process." She quickly changed the subject. "Let's discuss the procedure." During the examination, a nurse named Catherine, Cat, drew my blood. Something about her struck me as familiar, though I couldn't place her. She seemed to watch me with unusual interest. After extensive testing, I was declared an ideal candidate. A near-perfect genetic match, obviously, being Adrienne's sister. But something felt off. While reviewing consent forms, I noticed authorization for retrieving twice the number of eggs we'd discussed. When I questioned Adrienne, she dismissed my concerns. "It's just insurance, in case the first transfer doesn't work. Dr. Bennett recommended it." Despite lingering unease, I agreed. Family comes first, after all. The hormone injections began immediately, painful shots that left bruises and disrupted my sleep and work schedule. My research supervisor, Dr. Patterson, expressed concern about my increasing absences just as our Alzheimer's prediction model was nearing publication. "This isn't like you, Eleanor," he said. "We have deadlines for the grant renewal." "It's a family matter," I explained vaguely. "It'll be over soon." The egg retrieval procedure was scheduled on a Friday. I expected Adrienne to drive me, but she texted last minute. "Emergency with Thomas's family. Sending car service. Thank you so much for this." I woke from anesthesia alone and in significant pain. The doctor mentioned they'd retrieved 24 eggs, double what was standard, but all authorized in your consent forms. I was sent home with instructions to rest and warnings about potential complications. That evening, fever and severe abdominal pain sent me to the emergency room. I was diagnosed with ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, a serious complication of egg retrieval. As I lay in the hospital bed for 3 days, neither Adrienne nor my parents visited. My sister's excuse: "I can't risk anyone connecting me to your procedure. The Caldwells are very traditional. They can't know we're using a donor." The first layer of betrayal revealed itself a week later during a chance conversation with Thomas at my parents' house. He mentioned their completely anonymous egg donor and how grateful they were to this unknown woman. Confused and hurt, I confronted Adrienne in private. "Thomas doesn't know it's me." She pulled me into the kitchen pantry. "He wouldn't understand using family. Please, Ellie, keep this between us for the sake of my marriage." I reluctantly agreed, though the deception felt wrong. But worse was coming. While recovering at home, I received a call from Dr. Julia Morgan, a colleague in genetic research. "Eleanor, someone's been asking questions about your research methodology. They've implied you may have manipulated data in your Alzheimer's prediction model." "What? Who would say that?" My head spun with confusion. "I'm not sure, but several people in the department have heard similar rumours." The betrayal truly unfolded when I received an email accidentally forwarded to my personal account rather than my professional one. It was from Adrienne to someone named Kay, with the subject line, "Ellie's reputation." The email detailed Adrienne's systematic campaign to undermine me professionally, contacting my colleagues, suggesting ethical shortcuts in my research, even implying emotional instability affecting my work. Most devastating was the timeline. This had begun weeks before the egg retrieval. With shaking hands, I called my father, certain he would be outraged on my behalf. His long silence told me everything before he even spoke. "Ellie, I think you're misinterpreting things. Adrienne is under tremendous pressure with the IVF process. Perhaps she's just being protective of her chance to have a family." "By destroying my career?" I asked incredulously. "Family matters should be handled privately," he replied, echoing my mother's favourite phrase. "Let's not make a bigger issue of this." That night, alone in my apartment, surrounded by medical bills and emails questioning my professional integrity, I allowed myself one moment of complete breakdown. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes swollen. Then I made a single phone call to my research colleague and friend Sasha, asking for access to lab equipment after hours. The tears were gone, replaced by something colder and more focused. No one betrays a geneticist and expects to get away with it. 6 months passed. I maintained minimal contact with my family, declining Sunday dinners with vague excuses about research deadlines. From occasional social media glimpses, I saw Adrienne sporting an ever-growing baby bump, draped in designer maternity wear and glowing with maternal pride. My parents posted constant updates about their journey to grandparenthood, with my mother planning an elaborate baby shower at the Caldwell Foundation building. I poured myself into rebuilding my professional reputation, working closely with Dr. Patterson to document every aspect of my research methodology. The dark circles under my eyes testified to the double shifts in the lab, meticulously recreating experiments with witnesses present to validate results. "You're pushing too hard, Eleanor," Dr. Patterson warned. "This level of documentation goes beyond thoroughness into obsession." "Trust is easily destroyed and painfully rebuilt," I replied. "I won't allow anyone to question my work again." What no one knew was that I'd also been conducting private research after hours, using lab equipment to analyse my own genetic profile, the same information I suspected Adrienne had weaponised against me. The catalyst that changed everything came unexpectedly on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. My phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Eleanor Hargrove? This is Catherine Reynolds, Kat, from Boston Reproductive Partners," the fertility clinic nurse. "What do you want?" I asked coldly. "To meet in person. There are things you should know about your sister and your eggs." Her voice trembled. "Things I can't live with anymore." We met at a coffee shop far from both the clinic and the university. Kat looked different outside her medical scrubs, younger and visibly nervous. "I've known Adrienne since college," she began, hands wrapped tightly around her mug. "I'm the only one. who knew about her abortion back then. My shock must have shown on my face. She never told you. It was Thomas's baby before they were married. There were complications, damage that's the real cause of her infertility, not the unexplained factors she claims. Why are you telling me this? Kat's eyes filled with tears. Because what she did to you is unforgivable, and I helped her. Over the next hour, Kat revealed devastating truths. Adrienne never intended to use my eggs for herself. Instead, she arranged to sell them to another couple while using a different donor for her own IVF. She justified this by claiming my genetics were too risky due to our grandmother's Alzheimer's disease. Ironically, the very condition my research aimed to predict and prevent. She gained access to your complete genetic profile during screening and used it to target your research, Kat explained. She specifically undermined your Alzheimer's prediction model by suggesting your family history made your research suspect. Most shocking was learning Adrienne wasn't even pregnant. She was using a surrogate, wearing a prosthetic pregnancy belly to maintain the fiction of carrying the baby herself, something the Caldwells would never accept. Why would she go to such lengths? I asked, struggling to process everything. The Caldwell inheritance, Kat explained. Thomas's grandfather's will stipulates a biological heir must be born within 5 years of marriage to maintain Thomas's position in the family company. Their 5th anniversary is in 3 months. As rain streamed down the windows, my grief crystallized into something harder and colder. The moral question before me was clear. Did I expose these lies, potentially destroying my sister's marriage and devastating my parents, or allow the deception to continue at the cost of my own integrity? I visited Ryan's grave the next day, standing before his headstone in the gentle spring rain. "What would you tell me to do?" I whispered. My late fiancé had always valued truth above comfort. It's why he'd been researching his own family's medical history when he discovered the heart condition that ultimately took him. That's when I realized my revenge couldn't simply be about punishment. It needed to be about truth, the same principle that guided my research and would have saved Ryan's life. And I had an unexpected advantage: my detailed understanding of genetic markers and access to testing procedures through my lab. DNA doesn't lie, even when people do. That evening, I learned about the elaborate baby shower planned at the Caldwell Library, a private family collection housed in the Caldwell Foundation building. The event would include a ceremony where the new Caldwell heir would be recorded in the family's historic registry, a tradition dating back generations. It was perfect. As I began formulating my plan, I received an unexpected call from my mother. "Ellie, darling, I know you've been busy, but you simply must attend Adrienne's shower. Family must be present for the registry ceremony." I agreed immediately, surprising her. "Of course, Mum. I wouldn't miss it for anything." Family betrayal has its limits, especially when it's only expected from one side. What would you do if someone used your greatest gift against you? The choice between painful truth and comfortable lies defines who we become. Like this video if you believe Adrienne's betrayal justified my response, and comment where you would draw the line with family who betray your trust. Now let me show you how a geneticist plans the perfect revenge. My revenge began not with dramatic confrontation, but with methodical restoration. First, I needed to rebuild what Adrienne had destroyed: my professional credibility. I approached Dr. Patterson with a proposal for extraordinary transparency. "I want to publish our Alzheimer's prediction model with unprecedented peer verification," I explained. Every data point independently validated, every methodology step documented and witnessed. For 3 months, I worked relentlessly, inviting respected colleagues to examine my research process. When the paper was finally published in the prestigious Journal of Genetic Medicine, it included an unprecedented 20 co-signatories verifying its integrity, effectively neutralizing Adrienne's whisper campaign. Next, I needed evidence of what happened to my eggs. Through professional connections, I discreetly traced the paper trail of my donation. Clinic records were scrubbed clean, but money always leaves tracks. I discovered a payment from Boston Reproductive Partners to a couple in Rhode Island, the recipients of my eggs, routed through a shell company I eventually connected to Adrienne. I approached Kat again, this time with a hypothetical ethics scenario mimicking Adrienne's actions. Her guilty reaction confirmed everything. Recognizing her moral conflict, I carefully cultivated her as an ally. I don't want revenge, I told her, which wasn't entirely true. I want accountability. A significant challenge arose when I discovered Adrienne had destroyed most documentation about the egg donation. I nearly abandoned my plan until remembering something crucial. Billing departments keep records of everything. I created a pretext about unresolved insurance claims to obtain copies from hospital administration. Walking through the clinic's billing office, I nearly collided with Thomas exiting a prenatal appointment. My heart raced as he greeted me warmly. "Ellie, what brings you here?" "Just sorting out some insurance paperwork," I replied, clutching my bag containing the evidence I'd just collected. "How's Adrian feeling?" "Glowing," he said proudly, "though the doctors ordered more rest, something about elevated blood pressure." A lie, of course. The surrogate was likely having complications. With methodical precision, I built my case. Medical records, email exchanges, recorded conversations with Kat, with her consent. The final piece came when I confirmed Adrienne's elaborate baby shower would indeed include the Caldwell family registry ceremony, a public affirmation of the child's bloodline. My plan crystallized. I would reveal the truth at the shower, but not through accusation. I would orchestrate a situation where Adrienne's deception exposed itself through irrefutable scientific evidence. 2 weeks before the shower, I requested a meeting with my father at his hospital office. I didn't confront him directly about his complicity, but instead asked seemingly innocent questions about medical privacy and genetics. Would it be an ethics violation if someone accessed another person's genetic profile without consent? I asked casually. His physician's instincts kicked in immediately. Of course, that's a serious breach of medical ethics and possibly illegal. Why do you ask? Just a hypothetical scenario for a hospital ethics panel, I replied, planting the seed that would later blossom into understanding. The day before the shower, I sent an anonymous package to Thomas's office containing selected medical records. Not enough to reveal everything, but sufficient to raise critical questions about the pregnancy narrative. I included a note. Ask about the surrogate and egg donor tomorrow. Look for the truth in the DNA. The baby shower was held in the historic Caldwell Library, a wood-panelled room filled with leather-bound books and family portraits dating back centuries. Crystal chandeliers illuminated Boston's elite mingling among blue-ribboned decorations. Adrienne, wearing a fitted designer maternity dress over her prosthetic belly, played the radiant mother-to-be perfectly. My gift was wrapped in silver paper with the Caldwell crest, a deluxe family heritage DNA kit from an exclusive genetic testing company. The card read, "To celebrate the continuing Caldwell genetic legacy." "How thoughtful," my mother exclaimed, while Adrienne's smile froze momentarily. Thomas examined the box with unusual interest. "Actually," he announced, "let's open this one now. It fits perfectly with the registry ceremony." Adrienne tried to intervene. "Darling, perhaps later." "Nonsense," boomed Thomas's grandfather. "The registry ceremony is about family lineage. A DNA celebration is most appropriate." As Thomas opened the package, I explained to the gathered guests how modern genetic testing worked, using my professional expertise to frame it as a celebration rather than an investigation. "These tests reveal fascinating insights about inherited traits," I said, noting how Adrienne's knuckles whitened around her champagne glass. "They show exactly which genetic markers pass from parents to children." The kit included a special feature. Results could be displayed on a screen for educational purposes. Thomas, Now watching Adrienne with subtle intensity suggested we demonstrate using a sample from himself and the baby. "We could do a quick cheek swab from you, Adrienne," he said pointedly, "since the baby shares your DNA." The trap was set. Adrienne stammered about not wanting to know gender or health markers before birth. Biologically impossible objections that only raised more questions. Thomas's grandfather, now confused, asked, "But surely the mother's DNA is already known. It's the paternal line we're celebrating in the registry." The room grew tense as Thomas produced the papers I'd sent him. "Actually, I have some questions about that. These records suggest there is no maternal DNA connection to discuss." Adrienne's face drained of colour as she realised what was happening. In desperate deflection, she claimed the records were falsified, possibly by a jealous sister who had always resented her success. That's when I activated the final phase. If there's confusion, the DNA test can clarify everything right now, unless there's a reason you don't want to take it. As attention turned to Adrienne, her elaborate deception began unravelling. Thomas directly asked about the surrogate. His grandfather demanded answers about bloodlines. My father, the physician, recognised medical inconsistencies in her pregnancy story. Cornered, Adrienne attempted one last, desperate lie, claiming I had stolen her eggs through some elaborate scheme. In response, I simply projected the clinic records, showing exactly what happened to my genetic material. The DNA test wasn't even necessary in the end. The evidence spoke for itself, displayed on the library's projection screen for all to see. Adrienne's medical records showing her surrogacy arrangement, the sale of my eggs to another couple, and her systematic campaign to undermine my reputation. "You used me," I said quietly, my voice carrying in the silent room. "You took my eggs without consent, sold them for profit, used my genetic information to attack my research, and lied to everyone in this room. The truth isn't revenge. It's simply necessary." The room erupted in chaos as Adrienne's carefully constructed world collapsed around her. The immediate aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Gasps, hurried departures, and the Caldwell family retreating to a private room for crisis management. Adrienne alternated between sobbing and rage, accusing me of destroying her life out of jealousy. My mother initially rushed to Adrienne's defence until my father, ashen-faced, confirmed the medical documentation was authentic. "These are real patient records," he said, the physician in him finally overriding the enabler. "The procedures, dates, signatures, they're genuine." As guests scattered, Thomas approached me in a quiet corner. Despite everything, he maintained remarkable composure. "I suspected something wasn't right," he admitted. "The timing of appointments never made sense, and Adrienne became secretive about medical details." He ran a hand over his face. "But I never imagined this level of deception." "I'm sorry it had to happen this way," I said sincerely. He nodded slowly. "Don't be. A foundation built on lies would have collapsed eventually, just with more collateral damage." He glanced towards the door where his family waited. "The Caldwells value honesty above all. It's ironic she never understood that." 1 month after the shower, the ripples of truth continued spreading through our lives. My research received unexpected attention following a colleague's mention of the vindication of Dr. Hargrove's methodology in a medical journal editorial. 3 pharmaceutical companies expressed interest in our Alzheimer's prediction model, and Dr. Patterson nominated me for a prestigious research grant. Family dynamics shifted painfully toward truth. My parents sold their country club membership, no longer subsidised by Caldwell connections. My mother vacillated between blaming me for exposing the situation and acknowledging her role in enabling Adrienne's behaviour. My father, however, called weekly to check on my research, slowly rebuilding our relationship. Adrienne and Thomas separated immediately. The Caldwell family, protective of their reputation, handled things quietly but decisively. The surrogate was well compensated, the baby acknowledged as not biologically related to either Adrienne or Thomas, but arrangements made for Thomas to maintain contact if he wished. Kat resigned from the fertility clinic and reported several ethical violations, triggering an internal investigation. We occasionally met for coffee, both processing our roles in Adrienne's scheme from opposite sides. 3 months after the shower, I visited Ryan's grave again, placing fresh flowers against his headstone. I wonder if I did the right thing, I told him, as a gentle breeze rustled nearby trees. The truth hurts so many people. Yet I couldn't regret my actions. My research continued saving lives, my professional integrity restored. More importantly, I'd reclaimed my self-respect and established boundaries that should have existed long ago. A week later, my father invited me to lunch at a quiet restaurant near his hospital. "I owe you an apology," he said after we ordered. "I knew something wasn't right with Adrienne's stories, but it was easier to look away. Doctors are supposed to seek truth, not hide from it." "We all wanted to believe her," I replied. "That's how manipulation works." He nodded sadly. "Your mother's still struggling. She built her identity around Adrienne's achievements and connections." "And mine were never enough," I added quietly. He reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I failed you there too, but I'm extraordinarily proud of the scientist and woman you've become, Ellie, on your own terms." As for Adrienne, we haven't spoken since the shower. Last I heard, she'd moved to Chicago for a fresh start. Sometimes I wonder if reconciliation might be possible someday, but trust, once shattered, isn't easily rebuilt, especially when the breaking was so deliberate. In my lab now, surrounded by research that might one day prevent genetic tragedies like the one that took Ryan, I've found a strange peace. Family remains complicated, truth remains essential, and some betrayals change relationships forever, but they need not define us. When family uses your trust against you, sometimes the most powerful response isn't immediate confrontation but careful documentation of the truth. If my story resonated with you, please subscribe to Nexus of Revenge and share this video with someone who needs to hear that patience and preparation can transform a victim into the architect of perfect justice. Some betrayals can never be forgiven, but they can become the catalyst for reclaiming your power. One calculated step at a time.